A goal, Chris Billy, Huddersfield Town. The most famous goal of Chris Billy's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Ruby and Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Hello and welcome to The Drive-In. As Town shift into reverse, me and Killer are ploughing forward with the episodes like a warped game of chicken. This week, Killer, we've got Barnsley on the horizon. Founded in 1887, Barnsley were initially nicknamed the Colliers and played in blue, but changed to red and white in 1904. They joined the Football League in 1898. They've reached the FA Cup final twice in 1910 and 1912, winning the competition on the second occasion. Barnsley were second division stalwarts from 1899 to 1953, playing in Division 3 North on 3 occasions and winning the league twice. However, the Tykes were relegated from Division 2 in 1959 and slumped to Division 4 by 1966. They rose back to the second tier in 1982 at the expense of Mick Buxton's Huddersfield Town and remained there until 2002, having 1 year in the Premier League, which was quite memorable. Since then, it's been a bit of a yo-yo existence, Killer. Head-to-head, Huddersfield Town versus Barnsley, the teams have met 65 times. Barnsley have won 29, Town have won 34, and there have been 16 draws. The first meeting was in 1910, with Town winning 2-1 in Barnsley, and the last meeting was in April 2022, which Town also won 2-1. This time was on home soil. So both teams have beaten each other by 6 as well. Town beat Barnsley 6-0 in 1952, and Barnsley humbled Town live on Sky 7-1 in 1998. That gave me nightmares for days, did that one. Darren Barnard's volley in particular kept being played on Sky every single week at that point. But let's go to a quirky game. So one game from the memory. It's not really from my memory. It's more one for Cozzy. Another dig at Cozzy. Cozzy's caught strays from me and you this week, hasn't he, with the podcast we've been doing. But going back to February 1981, both sides going for promotion in front of a 27,000 plus crowd at the old Leeds Road. It was the biggest attendance for years down there. Dave Cowling scored for Town, and you can hear all about that and the Barnsley game on our Cult Heroes episode with Dave Cowling as well, if you look through our back catalogue. However, Barnsley would celebrate promotion that year and Town would just miss out. Any games stick in the craw for you, Killer? A home game against Barnsley?
We need to talk about this, Matt, before we record, because I was going to go straight to the 7. I was going to go straight to the 7-1 because we were top of the league a few games before it.
That's no way again. You got to pick a home game.
But the way I was going with that was top of the league. We went away from home. We had one of the best squads we've probably ever had, apart from your Premier League season. I know you've got this recency bias, and you look at people nowadays are far more fitter and all this kind of stuff, but Wayne Allison, Marcus Stewart, we had a wonder, Paul Dalton, amazing lineup, and we got humbled away 7-1. But 3 games before the end of that season, we played him again at home and lost again. And then a few games after that, Peter Jackson was sacked against everybody's wishes by Barry Rubery, and it kick-started for me the kind of fall away into the kind of oblivion that we're still really worried about revisiting at the moment a little bit.
Next year was quite fun for a few months under Steve Bruce, wasn't it, when they smashed Palace and stuff. But yeah, I remember that Barnsley game. I think Wayne Allison missed the biggest city you'll ever see in your life. Apart from Alfie Mays on Tuesday, I think Wayne Allison missed an absolute shocker in that one. But he scored enough goals for us. But it was a special one, was that one. But Barnsley, Killer, how are they doing recently?
To be fair, Barnsley are very similar to us at this point in the season. Obviously, last year they were in League One and failed in the playoffs at the end. They finished 6th with 82 goals last year, which put them third in the league. Third in the league for goals scored. 76 points. They had 12 losses, which I'm only mentioning now because obviously Town are racking up a fair few. And to finish 6th last year, 12 losses is what it took over 46 games. They ended the season really poorly last year. They won 1 in 8 and I think 2 in 11, which ended up with Neil Collins being sacked. Similar to when Lee Clark got sacked for us, I guess, at the end of it. A positive spell on paper,
though, wasn't it? It was really late.
It was really late before the playoffs. Well, they were lucky to finish within the playoffs with the form that they found themselves in at the end, especially when you're scoring goals. And then, obviously, it failed against Bolton in the playoffs. And then over the summer, they've had quite a turnaround. But Barnsley really suffer from this, don't they? They seem to lose a lot of players, kind of not every year, but every couple of seasons they do well, or then they're relegated and they have a massive turnover. So obviously they lost Herbie Kane to us. They lost Devontae Cole to West Brom. Jordan Williams left as well. Cam Styles also went to West Brom. They've lost the nucleus of the squad from last year. And as of yet, they're still trying to find a new way to play. We have a podcaster on, don't we, Matt, from a Barnsley podcast later on. And I think he'll suggest the same, in that they're not really working out what they are. The results are here, there and everywhere. They lost to Mansfield 2-1 early on in the season after Keeler Dunn ripped them a new one. But then they went out and signed him from Mansfield, and things have changed a little bit straight after that. He did pretty well to start off with. They drew with Northampton, but we know that's not anything to be embarrassed about, considering they beat us. They lost 3-0 to Stevenage, which at the time was looked at as a really bad defeat. But now, looking at Stevenage, they're not anywhere near as bad as I think people would have expected them to be. I don't think we picked them out in the pre-season preview, did we, Matt? To be a decent team this year. But Barnsley have the performances have not been great. They're conceding goals similarly to us. Looking at Barnsley's last few games, they drew with Wickham 2-2, I think, the last time out, and drew with Stockport before that. They are transitioning kind of the opposite way to us, in away from Michael Duff kind of football with your 3-5-2. Because obviously it wasn't that long ago that he was there, and they did have some sort of legacy where they kept a similar kind of style. And this season, they're not quite doing it anymore, and they're just trying to find a new way to go about it. And that's why the results are all over. They're all over the place, and we don't know what we're going to get out of them this weekend. But the form going into it is patchy, a bit similar to ours.
Speaking of the chat from Barnsley, it's Carlo Van De Watering, and it's one of the best names you'll come across in podcasting. Carlo is great. He's a Dutch Yorkshireman, and he supports Barnsley. And I asked him first up, what were Barnsley's expectations for this coming season?
I think most Barnsley fans probably expected a run at the playoff spot. We have done for the last 2 years, but the problem has always been a bit like groundhog season. Get rid of the coach, get rid of the best players and start again. So I think that was expected. I think that's probably what the board is looking at as well. Currently, it probably looks more like a mid-table finish. I think some of the teams that we expected to do well are up there. There's some difficult teams in the league, so we're probably below expectations so far this season. It's really difficult to look at who's really catching the eye, because there's swaps and changes within the team and within formations as well. I think most fans are probably looking at Humphreys, who seems to be doing well and knocking a few goals in, although not yet fully fit. But there's not many that are standing out, and I think some players we wanted to stand out are going unnoticed, which is probably why, where we are at the moment and getting the results like we are. But I would probably say that Humphreys is probably the one that is inspiring some optimism amongst the Barnsley fans. I think overall people like Daryl Clark's honest interviews, and I think he knows what's not working and is trying to change it. I think probably one of the issues is that we seem to be changing in formations and everything quite a lot. Now, some players have come in and, need a certain level of fitness. For some, it's just not working, and injuries. I think the one thing that I suppose could work against him is his brutal honesty, sort of like calling players out. That could easily backfire. I think his job is to find our best 11 and what formation and what players. And I think that's when Barnsley has that stability. I think we'll see results improving, and maybe Barnsley, fighting for one of those playoff spots like we initially discussed. He's got the CV, he's got the experience to be really good for Barnsley, and Barnsley to good for him. I think he just needs to figure out what will work for him. The lineup is just so difficult to predict with Barnsley nowadays. We started with 4 centre-backs on Tuesday night. 3-5-2 tends to be almost like the preferred formation, but then it's been 4-4-2, 4-3-3. And we can't identify a style. We can't identify an identity, a style. There's nothing that you can say you'll see Barnsley will do this, or you'll see Barnsley playing like this, because we don't. We know that Cotter's got speed down the right hand side. We know that Mark Roberts is a beast in the air and will most of the aerial duels. But what we've seen from Barnsley over and over again is slow on the ball, not taking the game to the opponent. So I find it impossible. Besides saying Slonina will likely be in goal and Mark Roberts will play, even up front, when you've got Waters, Cosgrove, Jallow, Humphreys, there's a lot to choose from, but he's swapping and changing. So it's very, very difficult to try and come up with something, with a formation or a starting 11, because it's just difficult. The Tottenham loanee, Craig, played really well, then goes a bit unnoticed. Connell has a good match, then again goes unnoticed. So a lot of work to do for Darrell Clarke to put Barnsley, or put a Barnsley team out that is his best 11 in a formation that works for them and can produce the type of football that we sort of got used to. Barnsley fans want to see attacking football. They want pressing football, the type of football we saw under Stendhal, under Ismail, and under Duff. And people could say, but they left, and so they did. But we know it worked. We've got the players to maybe play this. The one thing I am worried about, and always have been, is the pace at the back, or the lack of pace at the back. Mark Roberts is a beast in the air, but I would say that most of our centre-backs, speed is not their strength. So if you come up against a pacey attacker, that will likely cause us trouble. So difficult to come up with a score prediction. We can score goals. We've shown that. We can also show that we can, from losing positions, at least gain a point. You know what? It's a South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire. It's a derby. It's a Yorkshire derby. It's all the Barnsley fans will be in pink to support charity. I want it to be a mega occasion. I want it to be a brilliant advert for League One football. We're playing away. Our away form historically over the past few seasons has been better than our home form, but it is Huddersfield. It is Michael Duff. So it's going to be interesting. So I'll hedge my bets and I'll say we'll go for a 2-2 score draw.
There we go. Thanks to Carlo, as always. Always entertaining is Carlo. Top man as well. Killer, I think we need to pay a visit. I thought you were going to say something then. Pay a visit, and I think we need to
I'm just too excited, Matt. I'm just too excited. I'm ready for it.
To the tactics board. Right, okay. So, tactics board, I think it's going to be interesting this week. We covered it in the episode 221 in the review show, didn't we, about how we think Huddersfield Town need to make some changes. But let's start with Barnsley. Barnsley's difficult to predict. They've played sort of a 3-5-2 or a 3-5-1-1 for quite a lot of the season. And like I say, it's difficult to kind of predict how they're going to go. Last time out against Wycombe, they actually played like a 4-4-1-1 or a little bit 4-4-2, as Carlo said. But it's Keeler Dunn, isn't it, who's the interesting one. He's the one who just sort of plays off the striker, and the striker's big Sam Cosgrove, isn't it, where you throw balls into the box to him and he will be absolutely lethal. He's a big striker, strong, good in the air, and he absolutely ruined Bolton, didn't he, in the playoff semi-final last season. I think people will remember. Barnsley could line up with a back four or a back three at this rate. So there's a couple of players that sort of stand out. So they've got Slonina in goal, who's on loan. He seems pretty decent. Mark Roberts has been playing as it's almost like us with Tom Lees a little bit. They've got the experienced old head in the middle of defence there with Mark Roberts. Di Gavini is also either playing right centre back or right back, and it's Brandon Cotter who's the right wing back or right midfielder, and he's quite flexible up that side. The signed in midfield, the star man for me is Luca Connell. He's their best player. He's someone I would absolutely love at Huddersfield Town. I really would. Josh Earl is someone who we've been linked with. He can play left centre back or left back. He's predominantly a left back. He can even play left wing back. He's quite a flexible player as well. They got someone another centre back as well called Donovan Pines as well. In midfield, they're best, like I say, Connell's the best. The second best player, I think, is Phillips. I think Phillips is a really decent player, but he is out, I think, this weekend, which is a bonus really for us. But they've brought in Matthew Craig on loan as well. I think he's on loan from Spurs. He's relatively highly rated, so I think he's winning 1 or 2 plaudits as well for his performances. And like I said, Keeler Dunn is they've got Lofthouse as well, who can play left midfield or left wing back. It is a much changed team, and it's a much changed style because they've got Cosgrove up front because they've no longer got the pace up there of Andy Cole's lad. So I've got absolutely no idea how he ended up at West Brom. I don't think he does at this point, I'll be honest. But yeah, like I say, they could line up that way, or they could line up the 4-4-1-1, but it'll probably be the same sort of personnel. But it just means essentially they'll just shift like this. Josh Earl will move out, Pines, Roberts will move down, Digavani will play at right back. That's all, and Cotter will play in midfield like that, and they'll just maybe line up with like a 4-4-1-1. So it's quite a flexible shape, and they could probably do that in game as well. Like Carlos Corberán used to do that as well, and even off the ball, it wouldn't surprise me if they moved into a back 5 shape off of the ball as well when we've got possession. But like I say, like Carlo says as well, they've got no sort of like you and Carlo said, they're transitioning at the minute. They're trying to be something. They've got a new manager in Darryl Clark, who's quite an experienced League One campaigner. Been at Bristol Rovers and a few different places, Port Vale, etc. And it was a surprise he got the job really, because Barnsley usually look upwardly mobile and look at someone quite new, fresh, up and coming, don't they? And they went with a kind of, I wouldn't really call him merry-go-round as such, but someone who's a bit more experienced and has had a few failures, if you like. So that was an interesting appointment. But the man who stands out for me is Keeler Dunn. I think he's made a pretty good start, hasn't he, to his life in Barnsley as well. Grabbed a couple of goals, or grabbed 1 or 2 goals. He's just lively, isn't he? And he'll drop into those little spaces and cause problems. And when you've got a big striker like Sam Cosgrove, you need someone quick in and around him, don't you, Killer? And I think he's going to be the one who Barnsley look at to cause all the issues.
He's a great player. We picked him out at Mansfield that he'd be a really big player if they could keep hold of him this year in League One. He scored 22 off the top of my head, 23 goals last year in League Two, which for an ACM is really it's phenomenal. That's what it is. He's got the trundles about him for me, and obviously he's not a striker just like Lee Trundle was, but he controls. He controls the entire game.
I thought he had the shit. So
yeah.
The trundles.
But no, he got everything they do go through him attacking wise. He's a guy that he floats about a little bit, and you could probably get frustrated by it a little bit. Looking on the Barnsley, I like to look on the forums before we do the preview, just to feel. I believe fans do know what they're on about as a populace, maybe not individually, but if you look at the general voice of most of them and average it down and take away the extremist views, you can normally get at it. He's going to be out of games at particular points because he wants to play his own attacking brand. He wants to create chances. He wants to score goals. But we've got he to me, both teams are on the field on Saturday. He's going to be the standout man for both teams. He's that good. He can dictate games if he's on it. Like Barnsley do play a style of football that's very Duff-like in that they don't really have attacking set plays. Like they kind of just play football, which I know sounds kind of ridiculous, but they don't have a particular pattern. They just try and attack and overload. Defensively, they're very similar to us. They are. This is like, do you know the meme with the 3 Spider-Men pointing at each other? Yeah. It's like that. This is what we could get at the weekend if Barnsley line up with a 3-5-2. Phillips not being available is a massive deal because he scored 5 goals I think for them this year, and now so they've got midfielders actually bagging loads of goals. It's not even Keeler Dunn, it's Phillips at the moment. The strikers aren't taking up what they managed to do last year with Devontae Cole with his 18 goals in 46 at the moment. I think Cosgrove's got 2, and I think
Max Waters has struggled, hasn't he? But he's capable. So
they're struggling, and Stephen Humphries is struggling as well. But to be fair to Humphries, he's over his career has got 1 in 4. He normally scores a goal every 4 games, whereas I think Cosgrove's 1 in 10 or vice versa. Anyway, neither of them are prolific, but the midfield options are good. The way they kind of attack is a bit like us in that Evans and Wiles get a lot of the chances, in that the strikers and wing backs do the work to pull it back to the edge of the box, and that's why the midfielders are more dangerous. But Keeler Dunn is the one to watch for us this weekend, and we haven't talked about who in the town team I think we should put on him, but he's that good and that influential. You can even consider trying to man mark him out of the game because he's the threat, especially with Phillips missing.
Let's go to Town then. So Town will probably go with Chapman in goal again. I don't think Maxwell's fit. I haven't listened to the press conference early today, but I presume it'll be as you go. Defense is interesting for me because we mentioned in the review show that we'll go back to a back four, but we're trying to predict what Michael Duff will do rather than what we would do. I'd go to a back four, but I don't see Duff doing that just yet. Not if we're coming up against someone who potentially could be playing wing backs as well, because then it might be slightly different. But I imagine Keeler Dunn will just go stand in that space between the centre back and the wing back and just get on the ball and cause havoc. And that's going to be something that we're going to have to watch and learn how to deal with. But for me, Tom Lees, I think will probably start in the middle if he's fit. I did hear a rumour that he might have had a little niggle. Matty Pearson, I thought did all right against Reading and Birmingham. He has his limitations with his speed, but I think as a solid defender, he's League One. He's as League One as they come, isn't he? He'll head anything, he'll kick anything. Just don't ask him to stand too high up the pitch, and otherwise there'll be balls over the top. I think Nige comes back in to left centre back. A question is really where Brodie's going to fit in, because I think Brodie's performance against Birmingham probably warrants him to start again. He played left centre back, didn't he, against Birmingham?
Yeah.
But I think Nigel Lonvike will come back in. So the question really is, will Brodie fit in as a right centre back or a right wing back? And that's quite interesting. I think ideally, Michael Duff will want to try Brodie at right centre back and Nigel Lonvike at left centre back. But who do you drop in Lees and Pearson? He's probably backed himself into a bit of a corner maybe with that selection. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and Pearson was in the press conference today with Duff. And whilst you can not read into that too much, I don't think anyone brought in...
They put Hodge up the other day and then dropped him, didn't they? So you never know what's...
It's just that Duff was talking about Matty Pearson and that he's done really well. He wasn't fit pre-season and he's been banging on his door in the right character, in the right way. He didn't question his character whatsoever. He said he was the perfect character, the perfect guy you want in a football team. He's done well. So I would expect Pearson to start. So I think it's either Lees dropping out, Matt, or Spencer. But Lees has been a stalwart in this town team under Michael Duff. So that'd be surprising as well. Like you say, I think it's down to either Spencer or Lonvik, but it depends how much blame Duff apportions to Nigel from his mistake against Reading, really.
But I think he may have seen that Birmingham goal and realised he needs that pace on the outside, doesn't he, as well? So it's going to be interesting. Sorensen gets the nod for me at right wing back. I think he played quite well against Birmingham. Defensively, I thought he played better against Birmingham. Attacking wise, maybe didn't get as much chance to shine. Left wing back, if he's fit, it'll be Mikel Miller, I would imagine. They might not want to overload him too much, so he might not start, or he might come off at some point for Jaheim Headley. I would guess the midfield again. This is the area, isn't it, which we struggle with every week. Kasumu's got to be locked in. I know they might manage his minutes a little bit. I know there's that thing now, isn't it, where you manage minutes, and he's come back from injury. He's not played all season. He's played 2 games back to back, played them really well. In terms of form, you can't drop him. In terms of fitness, they may be forced to, but we'll have to see. But I think Kasumu may get the nod in there. I want to see a ball player next to Kasumu. Evans has been thrust a bit further forward, hasn't he? I think Evans could play a little bit deeper. I quite like him a little bit deeper when he drops into deep areas. He can tackle as well, can Evans? Sometimes a little bit overzealously, but he can tackle as well. And I'm just wondering whether Kasumu and Evans next to each other or Kasumu and Hodge might be a way to go. I mean, you wouldn't rule Jonathan Hogg out either from this. It's a Yorkshire derby. It's a battle. It's going to be gritty. They're going to have to pick up Keeler Dunn and organise themselves. So it may be that Hogg plays at 6 and Kasumu is then used as one of the box-to-box types just to try and break things up. And then probably Evans, I would imagine, would be there. So I think what he'll go with will be Hogg, Kasumu and Evans, I would imagine, in midfield, which means Ben Wiles drops out, but we'll probably come on for Evans at some point if the game's going our way. If it's not going our way, he'll come on for Hogg or Kasumu, I would imagine. Then he'll go back to that midfield where Hogg stands up here and the two midfielders stand up there. But as we discussed on the warm up, I think that's a lot to do with the defence being so deep and the midfield not being able to condense a lot. Up front, Killer, is interesting because Karoma. Maybe we've been a bit harsh on Karoma, or maybe I was a bit harsh. You're never harsh on Karoma, but maybe I was a bit harsh on his last few performances because it seems he's got a back issue. Maybe that would explain it, and now I'd be very happy if that's the reason why he's not played quite as well as before. Callum Marshall, for me, has played really well last couple of games. I know he's not scored, and I know he's not got chances to score, but I just think he's looking quite sharp at the minute. I think there's something's going to come from him. So I would let Callum Marshall continue to lead the line. And it's just a question of who plays with him. If Karoma's got an issue, I wouldn't start him. I think Barnsley are going to sit deep at times as well. So I'd probably go with Bojan again. And I know he came on against Reading and did quite well. People might say he failed his audition a little bit against Birmingham, but it's a tough game, isn't it, to come into from the cold. So I think Bojan might get the nod again, or I would give Bojan the nod again. So Bojan and Marshall, and I think Marshall, Bojan's really good with the little layouts. Marshall's been really, really clever recently. So there could be something there if they can get Marshall beyond rather than looking to get Bojan beyond, and he can be the link. But I think that's maybe how they'll go. I think he'll stick with 3-5-2. I wouldn't do it. I don't think you would do it. But I think that might be what he goes with. What about you, Killer?
Yeah, I'm very open on that. I think a shifting system is the most important part for this. We're not going to get it, I don't think. I think we're going to get our 3-5-2. Sorensen and Miller, just to go back to them, they have to start out wide if possible. You've got a week off after this. I know we've got the Tuesday. In fact, Mark, this is a buy one, get one free preview, isn't it? This is copy and paste for Tuesday night.
Just watch it again. Or listen to it again. In fact, listen to it again because we get more money if you listen to the episodes rather than YouTube. YouTube are tight for the payouts. We get about 50 quid a year or something. It's not a lot.
But
well, it's better than nothing, but yeah.
I think the wing backs are pretty straightforward. I'm with you, and Duff spoke quite well of Kasuma as well today in the press conference. And I love
great.
Kasuma.
He's been great.
I think Kasuma was great. I think he's better. He brings the ball through the thirds as well as anybody else in the team. If he gets it and there's space in front of him and the ball's at his feet, he takes it. And now his distribution at the end of it might not be perfect, but it still gives us a bit of impetus, a bit of tempo that makes it a bit awkward for the other team. You can see when he gets it and starts going forward, especially on counter-attacks and stuff like that, the other teams have to adjust for it. And that is the most important thing a football team can do, is get the other team adjusting to what's happening in front of them. And because as soon as that happens, that little bit of panic is where mistakes happen, and that's where openings come for goals. Kasuma has to play for me. I'd have Oggy in there next to him. But Matt, we spoke about those. Even if we're going with a 3-5-2, to me, your two centre midfielders, Kasuma and Hogg, I'd have them both as deeper guys. I'd have them both as defensive midfielders. And then to let Evans have that central run. Like again, he's been probably the standout or the most improved. That's probably the better way to put it. The most improved player of these last couple of games, and the last 8 have been awful in general. So maybe it's not an amazing award to get. But Evans has looked like he's starting to try and put his presence on a game, to stamp his authority on it. Yeah. And he looks good for it. And to me, that's because he's playing a little bit more centrally without Wiles taking that space. And for me, if you can have Hogg and Kasuma behind him in that midfield, that would make a difference. And I think that's the most important part of it. The strikers are important, yeah, obviously to some extent, but it's that midfielded room because we've just not got it just yet. I'd have Karoma in every day of the week as a striker, Matt. I will, because again, I need him to score goals just to prove myself correct. But I don't feel it'll be anyone else. If you get half a chance, it's him you want on it. Reece Healy and Danny Ward are back on the grass as of today.
That's
Healy,
on the training pitch, not the smoke.
Well, to be fair, Duff didn't clarify that. But anyway, he said obviously this weekend's too early for them, but they're coming back, and you've got that thrown into the mix now. You've got Marshall and Karoma, you've got the sniffer there, you've got Bojan, you've got Healy and Danny Ward. You've got 6 strikers. So the guys that do get the nod on Saturday have now got a little bit more pressure to perform, because up until now there hasn't been that many options. But again, all of a sudden, all being well, unless the Huddersfield Town curse strikes over the international break, as I'm sure it will. There's more options for Duff. So the guys have got to start performing now. And maybe that can give us a little bit of a kick up the arse. But we know what we're going to get. It's just if that midfield 3 can get it working. And this is a really big game for it.
Predictions?
Oh, we've been awful at these, haven't we? We started so well. We were giving it out, saying, "Oh, look at us! We got scoreline bang on. We got goal scorers bang on for the first couple of weeks."
We even predicted how the game would go pretty much in thirds, didn't we? And now we're in wreck of whoppers.
Yeah, this one is a really tough one to predict for me because I think Barnsley are very similar to us. So you're not comparing two different styles of football. It's kind of the same thing. And I think we will learn where we are in this approach a lot on Saturday. Again, I want to draw. I just want to draw now. I'm not even so bothered about a home win. This is change. I just think we have to be able to grind out results, and a draw for us and actually be a step forward. Of course, I'd rather win. Of course, I'd rather take the 3 points. But for a team building thing alone, a draw won't be the end of the world. And I think Barnsley will cause us problems, just like every other team has done recently. And they will adapt their game to counter our wing backs if they push high by flicking it over the top of them like Northampton did, like Stevenage did. This is what Darrell Clarke will do. He's been around the bush a bit. He's been in League One. He understands what it takes.
I think you brought that back from Australia with you, didn't you?
Yeah, do you know what? Sometimes it just sneaks out, Matt. He's still there. But he will play a pragmatist kind of style if it's not working for them. And I think we'll have to answer those questions once more. So for me, I'll go with a 1-1 draw because I don't think we're blessed with goals, and neither are Barnsley. But there'll be mistakes, and maybe it's a couple of mistakes that gives a couple of goals away. That seems to be quite common at the moment with us. And to be fair to Barnsley, looking at their recent games, so I'll go 1-1. But it's going to be an interesting one. This one.
Yeah, I was tempted to go 1-1, but I think we might grind this out. You know, we've lost 7 and 8, and I think this is the game where we have to have a response. If we don't have a response to this game, I think Michael Duff's position, if we lose, Michael Duff's position will be quite harshly questioned outside. Not by me. I want him to see this through to the end of the season. As long as we're not in trouble of going down, I want some form of consistency in the dugout and a plan. But it'll be hard. It'll be hard to back him if it's 8 and 9 and you lose at home to Barnsley in front of a decent crowd on TV. But I think it might be 1-1, but I want to be a bit more ambitious. I think I might go 1-0. I think Callum Marshall's performances have earned him a goal, Callum Marshall. But by the same token, I can see Barnsley scoring. But Town by 1 and Callum Marshall to score, I think. But I think it's going to be very tight, very close, and I think we'll be living on the seat of flying by the seat of our pants a little bit at times if we are 1-0 up. So that's it. Fantastic. So just go around the grounds finally, Killer. There's a couple of interesting games. I think Bolton versus Shrewsbury stands out because Bolton have hit form since we walloped them. They've won every game, and another win could potentially see them hit the top 6. And Bolton, you know, when we had ambitions of top 2 a couple of weeks ago, we were thinking, oh, it's great that Bolton have started so poorly. Now, all of a sudden, Bolton are 11th and we're 15th, and it's flipped, and Bolton have got a game in hand on us, and they're climbing. I know things still aren't great there. I think it's possibly ready for another issue. Barnsley is 7th as well, so I think it'll be interesting. And if Bolton win, they could leap into that top 6, and it could be a catalyst for them to push on to that top 2. So that's an interesting one. Peterborough versus Stevenage is interesting for me as well. Stevenage in 9th, and Peterborough are just 1 below us. I think people expected Peterborough to do better this season, so they're in a similar-ish position to us where I think they need a result sooner rather than later. Charlton versus Birmingham. Us and Charlton have just shit the bed recently, and Charlton will probably lose that game as well against Birmingham, and that'll start to put some pressure on them as well because they've fallen away. They were sort of top 2 material very early on, and now they're 13th as well. So that's going to be an interesting one. Blackpool go to Mansfield, and that's winnable for Blackpool to keep up their really good recent run. They're in 6th and they're pushing ahead. Mansfield, though, are 3rd in the table. I don't know where that's come from. We did say, didn't we, Mansfield could be a dark horse at the start of the season, but that was based around Kayla Dunn, wasn't it, mostly?
Keeping him. That was the key part of it.
Yeah. Rotherham versus Reading. Rotherham have finally broken that away hoodoo. Stockport versus Wigan, and Wrexham versus Northampton. I mean, Northampton have been absolutely trashed since they battered us, which is frustrating. And Wycombe are starting to put something together as well. They've got Crawley at home. If Wycombe win again, that's another team that could end up in the top 6. You're looking at Wrexham are in 2nd on 17 points, and then down to 9th Stevenage are on 14. So there's a lot that could change this weekend. And it's an interesting league. And I don't think anybody's quite, apart from Birmingham, have quite worked out what they're doing yet and how it's going. And people keep saying to me, oh, so-and-so are really good. I'm like, honestly, they'll be good for 6 weeks and then they'll be crap for 6 weeks. I think Blackpool at the minute, Blackpool were useless. They appointed Steve Bruce. They've won 4 or 5 on the spin, but I do think Blackpool will then go off the boil at some point as well. I think this is just League One. I think teams will play well for a spell and play poorly for a spell. And that includes us. Although I did expect more from us, in all honesty, in terms of where we are now. But anything stand out to you, Killer, before we bid this?
The main game for me is a Charlton-Birmingham game. Charlton, they've lost 3 in a row. A bit similar to us, isn't it, really? But there's very few teams I think most of us expect to give Birmingham a bit of a run for the money or to have a go at them. And now Charlton are at home, and if they can't put up any sort of fight against Birmingham at home, who will? I think it's a good test to see where Birmingham's at. I think we controlled them well enough the other day. I mean, a couple of different breaks, we could have lost that 2 or 3-0 pretty easily. I get that. But I thought we stopped them playing quite a bit. It was an improvement on our part. I thought Birmingham would be a little bit better than they were. I think it's an interesting one to see where, not only where Charlton are at, because I think they'll improve and get better, but if anybody in this division can compete with Birmingham, because up until now, no one else really has, have they? Apart from obviously the first game of the season where they got a last-minute equaliser, but they did batter them all games. So that's the one that I'm most looking forward to looking at this weekend.
Just looking at Mansfield, and they've won the last 3. They beat Crawley 2-0. I think Crawley are falling away now. Northampton 2-0, and Northampton are in a little bit of disarray this season, and then Shrewsbury 2-1 before that. So that's 3 teams not great. Lee Gregory's still going quite strong. I remember about 3 years ago, Phil Senior was adamant Town should sign Lee Gregory, and I was like, nah, Phil, you're having a laugh. But he's still going strong and he's still doing well. Maybe Phil was right. So they're doing really well. I think it's 4 wins in a row in the league now. They beat Kane, but they're all teams that you expect towards the bottom 4. So I'm not going to get too carried away with them, but I do like Will Evans, who they've signed. I think that's a really good sign, and I thought he could have gone to someone like ourselves and done quite well. Maybe next time. But I think that's it, Killer. That's it. We've overrun a little bit. We're playing Barnsley again on Tuesday, so all you need to do before Tuesday is rewind this and then listen to it again, and I'm sure it'll be pretty much the same sort of thing. But anyway, we'll be back next week with episode 222. That'd give Mervyn Shepherd, the old umpire Merv Shepherd, all sorts of sleepless moments, wouldn't it? It'd be on one leg all over the place. But join Jay and Joel as well for the post-match recovery show if the guys can get one going. Have a look out for them on Spaces as well. I feel sorry for them at the minute. Not many people are wanting to speak on the Spaces thing, and the post-match show is all about getting post-match reaction from you guys, and that's what they need at the minute. So if you see them there, give them a hand, jump on, and just vent your spleen or celebrate, whichever way the result goes. But anyway, thanks everyone, and we'll be back next week.
There's a team that is dear to its followers. The colours are bright blue and white. They're a team of renown, they're the pride of the town, and the game of football is their delight. And all the while upon the field of play, thousands loudly cheer them on the way. Often you can hear them say, who can beat the town today? And then the bells will ring so merrily, and every goal shall be a memory. So town, play up and bring that cup back to Huddersfield. So town, play up and bring the cup back to Hildred.